All right, we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Literally Me, episode number 9. Um, it's an early pod for us. For you guys, it might not be, whatever time you're listening, but it's an early one for us. And as usual, I'm Tristan, and I'm joined by my boy Dino. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. In daylight this time, usually we record at like 10 p.m. for me.
Yes,
This time we're early, so I don't have to turn on any lights. It's
it's
daylight.
It's wild. Yeah, up to this point, I wasn't quite sure that there was sunlight in Germany. I hadn't seen it firsthand ever. It was always dark on your end, but
Now you have a confirmation, so
yeah, you
there
guys
is in
are
fact
human.
daylight.
Yeah.
We're not
Super.
vampires.
You are. Yeah, yeah, I believe it.
We're not. I mean, we have Nosferatu, but
Are you sure about that? Are you sure you're not a vampire?
maybe I can't tell you the truth, but
Yeah, yeah. You got some like dark like contact lenses in, so it still feels dark for you right now, or something.
that's a
Um,
secret.
but we're back for another episode. This week we watched a movie that was on my list called A Bucket of Blood, Roger Corman movie. Super excited to talk about that one. It's one of my all-time favorites, one of the most fun movies for me to watch. But before we get into the good stuff of A Bucket of Blood, I'm curious to know, Dino, what have you been watching? It's been another just about almost 2 weeks again, I think.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what have you been watching?
Well, I've been studying a lot, but I still managed to get a few movies in. So one thing I watched is a movie called Secret of the Incas. Have you heard
I,
about
s-
this one?
only because I saw you log it on Letterboxd
Yeah.
and I read
It's
about
this
it because I was curious.
it's this 1945, I think. No, 1954 movie. And it's the inspiration, well, one of the inspiration for Indiana Jones, actually.
Hmm.
Especially the costume came like straight from this movie. There are a bunch of others like Dog Savage and The Treasure of Sierra Madre, I think is another one that
Hmm.
Indiana
I
Jones
can definitely
inspired
see
by. But
that.
this one was like a heavy inspiration, especially for the costume. So I watched it. It was fine. I didn't like it that much, to be honest.
Hmm.
I was a little disappointed, but I still watched it. I just wanted to, well, the hype for Indiana Jones is
Yeah.
coming now, a little over a month. So I wanted to watch the inspiration because I never did. So yeah, I watched that one.
Dino, this kind of made me just think of something now
Hmm.
because I love the way that you look at movies that it's like you always find a positive of like whatever movie. I think this is the first time I have actually ever heard you say you straight up like did not really care for something.
Yeah, I usually don't because I'm just like, yeah, I try to find like a good quality for
Yeah.
every movie. And this does have good qualities. I was just very bored.
Yeah, so guys, translation of Dino did not care for it. This thing is probably a piece of shit. Let's
It's not completely
from my
garbage.
mouth,
It's just
not from
like,
Dino's, from
yeah,
mine.
I would never say that. You would
No.
never hear me say that. Um, but yeah, I mean, you can find it was also late at night and I was kind of tired.
Yeah.
Maybe that
I was
also
reading
like
Is Charlton Heston in that movie? Is he the lead of that movie?
let me check.
I don't remember if it was that one or another one that I was
Yeah,
looking at on
Charlie Heston.
Letterboxd. Yeah, okay.
He plays Harry Steele, who's the main
Very,
character.
very cool.
It had some like especially the when they got to that little place where the Incas live. That was cool when they got the treasure and the
Uh-huh.
ending as well. But everything leading up to it was kind of boring. It should have been cool because the concept and like everything that happened was cool, but it was kind of executed in a snoozy way.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
All right. I think
Yeah.
that's fair.
And then I
What else you
watched
watch?
another movie called Fracture. Have you seen Fracture?
With our boy?
Ryan Gosling and Anthony
I've n-
Hopkins.
I've not seen it. I can see the poster in my mind right now, but I've
Mhm.
never watched it.
Okay. It's been on my watch list for a while, and I wanted to watch more Ryan Gosling because Barbie is coming up soon.
Yes,
And I've
sir.
always wanted to, well, pretty much finish his filmography. I've seen a lot of his movies, but there's still a bunch of older ones I haven't seen. This was one of them, and it's very cool. I liked it a lot. So basically, to explain the plot without spoilers, it's not spoilers because it happens in like the first 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Anthony Hopkins plays this guy, and he finds out his wife has been cheating on him. So he shoots her. And Ryan Gosling plays this lawyer who tries to persecute him. The thing is, Anthony Hopkins' character is like really, really smart. So he represents himself.
Oh.
And Ryan Gosling's character here, he almost never loses. I think he has a 97% win rate.
Uh-huh.
And he
Ryan Gosling does, or
Ryan Gosling,
Hopkins?
I'm sorry, yeah. And he also drops cases he thinks he wouldn't win because he likes
Right.
winning.
Right.
And so this seems like a clear win for him because the guy shot his wife, this whole
Yeah.
thing. But he's very smart and it's very interesting. It's one of the like best courtroom drama thrillers I've seen.
Interesting.
Very
Is
interesting
it
plot
pretty
twist.
is it pretty procedural that it all kind of takes place like inside the courtroom, sort of like a Few Good Men sort of thing?
Not really. Like the actual courtroom scenes, there aren't that many, but
Uh-huh.
everything around it is very, very cool.
Okay.
I wish there would have been more like actual courtroom stuff. I think that's the only
Oh wow. Okay.
downside. But it's a very interesting and cool movie. I mean, you have this movie with Ryan Gosling and Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
That cast alone makes for a very, very cool movie.
I gotta check that out.
You have
It's
to.
been on the
It's
watch list. I don't know why I've never got around to it. I feel
mm,
like I might even have the DVD upstairs. Seriously.
if you do, if you're interested, if you like are curious, check it out. Definitely do because it's very cool. I think you would like it.
Hell yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And I had to like I actually rewatch the ending just to make sure because it gets a little bit confusing
Yeah.
and I didn't quite understand it. But then I watched it again and then I understood
Does it have
what
like
was
some
happening.
twists and stuff throughout it?
There's a cool twist as to why they didn't find the murder weapon.
Interesting. Okay.
So I had to check that one out again. But yeah.
Cool.
And then I watched two animated movies. I watched The Good Dinosaur, which is a Pixar movie. It wasn't well received
Is it
at
new?
all. It was from 2015.
Never heard of it.
It has a 2.3, 2.9 on Letterboxd.
Wow.
So
That's
it's
got to
one
be the
of
lowest Pixar.
it's I don't know if it is the lowest, definitely one of the lowest, might be the lowest,
Yeah.
which is kind of a shame. I liked it.
Uh-huh.
The the story definitely has it could use some adjusting
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure. It's a little convoluted and it could you like it has some pacing troubles
I see.
here and there. But the
I'm
animation
gonna look it
is
up.
beautiful, especially the environment. It looks almost photorealistic. At times I wasn't sure if it was animated.
Mm-hmm.
So my girlfriend were like, whoa, this has to be realistic, but it's animated, which is really cool. But it's a cool story. It's cute. It
The
was
Good
fun.
Dinosaur.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went to go like just pull it up on Letterboxd to see the poster. I mean, this doesn't even ring a bell at all.
Mhm.
I feel like they probably Pixar when they realize they have one that isn't like up to standards, they probably shovel it off very quietly.
Yeah, for sure. Because I hadn't heard a lot of it as well before I watched it. So
Hmm.
yeah. The other movie I watched was Frozen 2
Oh, dope.
because I only watched the first one like a couple of months ago. And then I wanted to check out the second, and the story was kind of, yeah, it wasn't that great.
Yeah.
It was very predictable,
Mm.
but the animation was great. The songs I didn't like as well. A lot of singing, a
Yeah.
lot of singing. At times I was like, can we get past the
Yeah.
singing and just get to the story? But the story didn't offer that much for me personally either. But it was still very well animated and it's worth a watch if you like animated musicals.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the first Frozen. It's kind of
Mhm.
been It's funny because I had some family in town staying with me this past week, and
Mhm.
my cousin's like has three small little kids, and her daughter's like 4 or 5 or something, and she's like obsessed. And they left from my house to go to Disney. So
Mhm.
she was like, I'm sure she's all into that Frozen stuff right now. Saw some pics, but I have
Mhm.
never actually seen Frozen ever.
Yeah,
I'm not the biggest like animation fan, but I feel like I gotta hunker down because I think that's like on the level of like a Toy Story or something in terms of like its importance in like the
mhm.
Pixar culture.
Definitely, definitely. It's like I think Disney's most famous
I
movie
think
right
so.
now with
Yeah.
kids right now, but I definitely check it out. I like the first one. I think it was good. It was
Oh
solid.
yeah.
So just to be in like the zeitgeist of everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's it for me. How about you?
Cool.
What have you been watching?
Yeah, so after we got into some old Lil Carpenter last week, I decided to do some more carpentering, and I put on a double feature of two of my favorite. Well, now I have a pretty firm grasp
Mm.
on what I think my rankings are after
Yeah.
revisiting some. Um, but I did a double feature of my two, what I think are my top two Carpenter movies, and that's The Fog and The Thing.
Mhm.
Um, The Thing, it genuinely really is one of the best movies ever made. It
It
is
is.
really so damn good. Like every time, like you know everything that's gonna happen, but even just watching it this time, I'm like, God, I'm like, how? And it's weird because I think The Thing sort of like feels different than every other film in Carpenter's filmography. And and like I don't know if you feel the same way, but there's a part of like Carpenter, and I don't even mean this in a negative way. I actually like it because it enhances the style of his films, but there is a very
Mhm.
slight campiness in a lot of his films,
For sure.
especially They Live.
Mhm.
They Live almost turned to the max. Um, but The Thing is completely absent of any kind of campiness. And it's weird, like he does like these like vignettes and they just fade to black every scene. Like there is like it's just like it's weird, like in a great way, but it's like I wish you would have made more films like this. Not that it's like more serious, but it's just like
Mhm.
a completely different way of making a movie. I'm like, damn, this is wild. But The Thing solidified not only as my favorite Carpenter, but that I had to add in. I'm surprised I didn't have it in like my top 50 all time list on Letterboxd.
Mhm.
So I promptly changed that and threw that in there.
As
Um,
it should. I need to rewatch it. I haven't seen it in a
Dude,
while.
it's so good.
Yeah. And
It's
I
so
definitely
good.
understand what you mean with like the campiness. Because
Hmm.
in all his other movies, there's this certain style, like this certain campiness he has. But
Yeah.
trying to remember the thing, there actually wasn't. Like it was all very I don't want to say grounded, but grounded.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's the way that I was even describing it, it's like more serious, but even that, like, it like insinuates that anything else is not as serious. But I don't believe that at all. It's just the style
Mhm.
of it is just different. And
For
it doesn't
sure.
have like that, it has energy, but more in like a pulsating kind of pounding where They Live has like an energy from like visual energy and just like so much happening and the
Mhm.
script and everything and the characters are so bombastic and same thing with The Fog, which I mentioned I also watched. Very campy, but I love that movie um a lot. Have you ever seen The Fog?
I haven't, not
I
yet.
think yeah, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun,
Mhm.
especially rewatching it like immediately after They Live. I was
Mhm.
just like, yeah, this was like a good follow up kind of vibe. I and for me, I'm a real sucker for any kind of movie, particularly horror or mystery that takes place in a small like oceanside or seaside town, like a
Mhm.
small coastal kind of town or village. I will watch any of them and they'll all get 5 stars for me. Every
Is it
single last one.
set on the West Coast?
California. It's like in a it's called Antonio Bay, which I don't think is real, but it's
Mhm.
like a very small like Northern California kind of like coastal sort of town. Sort of
Also
like
sounds
something in like
interesting.
The Birds maybe, like how it's
Mhm.
kind of that very small sort of town on the ocean, something
Mhm.
kind of up that alley.
I need to
Um
watch it.
I think you would like it a lot, honestly. I think it would like crack maybe like your top five card. Like it's a really fun watch.
Mhm. It's
Um,
about time. I really need to. If I find it, I might watch it next week after
yeah,
my exam. So
it should be fairly available. It's
mhm.
funny, I rented it on iTunes and the poster and the description was all in Spanish. So I was like, is this gonna be like a Spanish? There was no English it was just in Spanish. I was like, is
That's
this gonna be
weird.
like a Spanish version? And then I clicked and it was totally fine. But it was
Mhm.
just very odd. But it should be available. I hope for you out there.
Mhm.
Um, but one other movie that I do want to mention that I did check out immediately after The Thing was the remake of The Thing from
Mhm.
2011.
We talked about it
Which,
last week.
yes, which
Mhm.
remake, I say remake, but it's really more of a prequel. Um, that movie is actually, mm, I think it has so much potential because that is the best execution you could ever do for like a reimagining or anything like that. Is like doing the prequel. Like that was like the best idea I
Mhm.
think that they could have done. And like the story is there, like you have all this like really interesting stuff going on, but then it's just directed so badly, like just so incompetently that it's just like, oh, I wish Carpenter could have just done this also. and
Mhm.
and maybe it just feels worse because you go from seeing John Carpenter directing his best film ever to then
Mhm.
seeing this. It's like, what is this amateur shit? Like, what, you can't be doing this, come on.
Did they try to emulate his style?
Not really. In fact, there was such an absence of style that it was kind of upsetting. I'm like, literally I don't even know who directed it because I don't,
Mhm.
it's like anybody could have. There's no identity behind it at all.
That's kind of
Um,
sad.
it is very sad. And the thing that bothers me about it is that the thing works because it's so tense, like the original thing, that it
Mhm.
just always built, like it just takes its time until holy shit, this thing happens, settles down and it builds to the next. And it's just like a classic Hitchcock technique for building suspense. You just let it
Mhm.
ride out. But in the fucking remake, instead of doing it, this douchebag every 2 seconds has to throw in some kind of jump scare. And it literally happens so much that once the big, no pun intended, thing like happens, you
Mhm.
literally miss it because you're like, wait, what? I was just so startled from something 5 seconds ago that now this happens. I'm like, whoa, I'm not even like, why did you do that 5 seconds ago? You could have gotten me right now.
Mhm.
It's
So they
uh,
rely on
it's
jump scares and
it's and
cheap.
silliness. It's
Okay.
very badly directed, in my opinion, but I do love the idea and the story of
Mhm.
it. And I did not remember because I had seen it years ago. I did not remember Joel Edgerton being in it.
He's in it.
But he is,
Interesting.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I watched that, and then one thing I just want to mention very briefly
Mhm.
before we get into the rest of the pod that I've been watching. Now, you know, Dino, I'm not a big TV show guy. I'm not a
Yep.
series guy. I just like watching movies. I hate hate having um hate having like having my life dedicated to this thing for weeks and weeks and months.
Mhm.
But I got sucked into Succession finally, ahead of its, well, I guess it's in its final season now, but ahead of the
Mhm.
finale. I just started it. Um, and I certainly understand the hype. And I'm curious to know, have you seen any of it? Are you familiar with it?
I'm familiar with it. I haven't seen it. Everybody has been posting about it for like the last 2 years.
Yeah,
It's gotten very popular. I don't know why I haven't checked it out. I don't even know where it's available over here.
that's
It
right. Because
certainly is somewhere.
you guys don't have HBO Max, like technically, right? Isn't it like
We
through a sister company of some
we
kind?
don't. So it's probably on WoW. Like this, that's
Okay,
Sky
okay,
TV. They changed their name to WoW. It's probably on there. I have it, so I'll
okay.
see if it's available. But I'm kind of the same way about TV shows. I do watch them from time to time, but I have difficulties getting into them,
Same.
especially when there's like a really popular show that everyone talks about. I
Hmm.
kind of want to watch it, but at the same time, it's kind of difficult getting into it, especially because there's already so many episodes out. If it starts new, then I'll check it out gladly. But What season is Succession on?
4. So it'll end after 4, which was a really enticing thing, just knowing like, oh, okay,
Mm.
I can do 4 seasons. Each one I think is like 10-ish episodes. So it's like I can
That's
do that.
mhm,
Like that is not like Game of Thrones where there's like over 100 episodes. I'm like,
mhm.
I'm not doing this. This is just ridiculous.
That's definitely doable. So I might check it out
I
once
would
it's
rec
finished.
I would definitely recommend because it's coming. I think it's done in the next like 2-ish, 3-ish weeks, maybe,
Mhm,
from the time of us recording.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think you would actually really like it a lot.
I don't even know what it's about.
It's just to give a very brief in terms of vibe, I was describing like it kind of feels like some Safdie brothers type shit, sort of, but taking place like if the Safdie brothers kind of did like the movie Network or like was focusing on like the media world and kind of the ultra wealthy elite who are completely clueless about real life and kind of about that world. But it has a Safdie feel to it, I think because it's so New York. Like it is such a New York thing. It's shot on film. Every damn episode shot on film, which I need to mention is a huge thing for television.
Mhm.
Every damn episode, it looks so good, but it also has a feel of like The Office, the way that the camera works, and it has like those quick zoom ins and zoom outs. You know what I'm talking about?
Mhm. Yeah,
It has like that, so it gives it this weird other dynamic to it. It's super cool. But Adam McKay is the executive producer along with Will Ferrell. Who Adam McKay, I have my own thoughts about him, but
mhm.
and it's also directed by the guy. Most episodes are directed by the guy who directed the movie The Menu from last year.
Really.
Yes,
So
Mark
you just
Malone.
you just
Milo.
pitched this TV show better than anything because I've been seeing it for like 2 years and I kind of wanted to check it out, but at the same time I didn't really know. But after what you just told me, I think I'm gonna put it on next week.
Dude, it's dope. I really like it a lot. It can be tough getting into the first episode because everybody is so unlikable. They are
Mm.
so rude, and like all of them are like really none of them are good people. And
Is there at least one likable character?
yes,
Oh, okay,
yes,
that's what I need.
there's one character in there, and even but that's the thing when the episodes go on. Like I even texted my cousin who's been telling me for years to watch this movie. I was like, I kind of feel bad for blank character because I'm like I really there is something in there where like I see how you got to this point and I see why you're this way, and because of it I kind of do feel bad for you.
Mm.
So it does like there's great storytelling going on, and I'm not going to talk much more about it,
Mhm.
but
I'm
I
gonna
highly
check it out.
recommend. Yeah,
You
and
just made
yeah,
it very
it's dope.
interesting to me, so
Highly recommend. And shout out to the Instagram page, my guy at Safety Bro Shit Post. He's the one who got me onto this show, posting about it. He just got into it, so shout out to him
legend, legend.
for leading the cause and sucking me into Succession for that. So, um, but yeah, yeah, I'm moving onward though
Mhm.
from that. Um, I'm curious to know what's in the news in terms of movies. You got anything that maybe you want to discuss, or anything that's come out recently that's been on your radar?
Well, we talked about there have been a couple trailers that
Hmm.
came out, one of which would be for Killers of the Flower Moon, which came out
Yes.
yesterday. Have you seen the trailer?
Yes. Went on Instagram randomly and just saw it there,
Mhm.
just waiting for me, and I checked it out. And I understand that because I sent it to you, and I understand that you did not watch it. You were waiting for a perfect kind of viewing moment for it. Is that correct?
Yeah, because I'm gonna be in the theater a lot next month. Well, in
Okay,
2 weeks. Starting in 2 weeks, I'll be next month 6 times,
let's
which
go.
I've never been that much in like a month. And I'm waiting to see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
I just thought, hey, why not wait a couple of weeks and just see it on the big screen as well as the Mission Impossible trailer, which also came
Oh,
out.
I saw that dropped as well.
Didn't watch it. I said, hey, I'm gonna experience it on the big screen because I can wait. I'm gonna
Hell
be
yeah.
patient. Um, but yeah, do you want to talk about it? Like, did you like the trailer?
Um,
Was it good?
so I'm just going to mention a few things because I also don't want to spoil a trailer like for you.
Mhm.
It is Scorsese's first Western. We do know that. So being able to
Mhm.
just see that, and it's not a traditional, shoot 'em up, high noon kind of
Mhm.
thing, but it's a Western esque. So
Mhm.
just seeing that was like, damn, like this is dope. Like Marty finally like did a West, like this is like kind of what at least I've been waiting for. Like I've been wanting to see something like this.
That got me
Um,
excited as well. Because I love
which
westerns, you love westerns, so that's
yeah.
perfect for us.
And I was thinking about it. This in effect is also, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Leo's first technical Western as well. Not including like the Revenant that sometimes gets thrown into like being a neo Western of some kind because it's a
Mhm.
period piece and in the wilderness. But
Django.
I oh, you're damn right. Yep, Django.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right. Never mind. But I was
But
gonna say,
apart
yeah,
from that,
apart from
only really the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like that's
that's
little
what I was gonna say,
movie
but I
he
was like,
shot.
don't count that. I was like, I don't count Once
Mhm.
Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Um,
But apart from
because
that, hasn't.
because the thing is, and now it's interesting, actually makes it more interesting because in that Western, you hear Leo do one thing. He's like a very Louisiana like style guy, and you can sense it like through the accent, or at least maybe for me, because I was lived in that area for some time. But
Mhm.
this you can tell is clearly a much different type of Western. And when you hear Leo talk, like the dialogue, like the voiceover in the trailer, like it is some like John Wayne shit, and it goes pretty hard. I cannot lie.
I can't
Um,
wait.
but it's super cool. It looks really massive in
Mhm.
its scope, and it looks like it's a slow movie, not in a bad way, but it looks like okay,
Mhm.
this looks like it's gonna be a grand thing that's gonna really take its time and really pull us into something, which
Well, it
I'm
is
really
like
excited for. It's like over
3 hours.
3 hours,
Mhm.
unreal.
Does it
Um,
come out in theater or is it Apple TV Plus only?
no, it will be in theaters exclusively upon release, and then will be on Apple.
That's good. I hope
Yes,
so here as well. I hope it's not
I
just
sure
the
hope so.
US. I hope it's worldwide. And then
Did you guys get The Irishman in theaters when it came out?
we didn't. It just came out on Netflix.
Oh, okay. Because they did here in the States, we did get it for like a week or 2 weeks prior to Netflix.
They might have shown it in like bigger cities. So maybe in like Berlin, Munich,
I
and like
see.
exclusive theaters. But where I live, we didn't get it, unfortunately.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. Um, but
But I
yeah,
hope for
anyway,
this one. I hope we get
yeah,
it.
I hope so too. I think it's a movie that needs to be seen on a big screen. Like you said, like you want to see the damn trailer on a big screen. So
For
you
sure.
better see that whole, 3 hour film on a big screen also.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's super cool. But then another trailer that came out for a movie that we discussed a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
or a couple episodes ago, was the new Yorgos Lanthimos movie, Poor Things. We finally got a trailer.
Mhm.
Did you check it out?
I watched that one because I
And
saw screenshots and I was like, whoa, what
yeah,
is this? And then I had to
yeah,
check it out.
I'm curious to know what you thought.
Well, it looked very interesting. It looked visually very different from probably what you expected as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Just in a negative. A lot of people had negative things to say. They said it looked AI generated,
yes, that was my
but I
immediate
thought
thought as well.
I thought it looked interesting and cool. I'm very curious to see. I loved William Dafoe, how he looked. He looked he looked like Frankenstein, straight up.
Yes, he looks badass.
So I'm excited for it for sure. What about you?
I'm super excited too, and it's funny that you say that. I'm glad you said that because that was kind of what I read, that everyone's like, "Oh, this looks very like uncanny valley, like an AI generated thing." And that was my initial thought too. But then you have to realize the film is literally about this man reanimating his daughter. Like, so it's fitting that of course it's going to look like that's what the movie is about. Like that's so it makes sense, and it kind of reminds me, which I missed in theaters for the record. I was gonna say like a month ago, I'm like, I have to see it first weekend. I was that dude. Never saw it. Bo is afraid. There were
Mm,
some things in that trailer that looked the same way, where there
yep.
was like a staginess or like an AI generated aspect to it that I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And Poor Things, there were some moments in the trailer that kind of reminded me of that. But I'm really excited. The cast is awesome.
Mhm,
And Yorgos Lanthimos is just an awesome director, and it's been a while since his last movie, so I'm
mhm.
really curious to see. I forget the date. I'm going to pull up the date of the
I think it's
release.
September.
Yep, yeah, September 8th.
Mhm.
Um,
Was The Favorite his last movie?
Yeah, and that was 2018, I believe.
Yeah, I still haven't
Maybe
seen that one.
19.
I
I
wanted,
haven't seen it either. I've seen the rest, but the favorite because I haven't seen it.
yeah, I wanted to watch it. I was this close to watching it a couple days ago.
Oh, really?
I was very close, but then I didn't. I don't know why. We decided on something else. I'm definitely going to watch it before Poor
Poor
Things
things.
for sure.
Me
For
too.
sure.
Are you a fan? Because this is what's kept me from watching it is that I don't like, and I'm trying to think of the term, maybe more Renaissance era
Same.
period pieces. I don't
Same.
like it. The big wigs, the big dresses, their issues are
Mhm.
so unrelatable and so unsympathetic to whatever is actually going on in their lives that I'm like, I don't like any of these movies at all.
Same here. I actually, that's funny because I had a discussion with my girlfriend, and that's why we wanted to watch it initially,
Uh
because we talked about it, because my girlfriend loves these types of movies and TV
huh.
shows like Bridgerton and something like that.
Yeah,
I have a very hard time getting into those
me
with
too.
like the kings and like the royals and them marrying and the drama. It's very difficult for me to get
Me
into that.
too. Hmm.
I think that's why I haven't seen The Favorite yet, because that's what's keeping me, but I want to watch it. I want to give it a chance. But so far, those types of movies just aren't for me.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. The only ones that I'll go see, it's like I forced myself for like because it was Scorsese to watch Age of Innocence. Whole
Mhm.
time I'm like, I hate this movie. I'm like, I hate this. Or like Barry Lyndon because of Kubrick. Although that one I was like, it was actually a pretty funny movie, but the whole time like, ugh, it's so long and slow. These movies
I
are
haven't
so
seen it.
boring.
I haven't seen.
Um,
That's what's keeping me from it because I wanted to watch it, and
exactly.
those time
Um,
periods just, yeah.
they're
But I'm going
tough
to
for
check
me.
them out. I'm going to give them a chance, all of those movies, because they deserve
Same.
a chance.
Same. Once September comes, I have a feeling you and I will be discussing the favorite, at least for a couple minutes, I'm sure, before
Mhm.
Poor Things
For
comes
sure.
out.
For sure.
Um,
There's actually one more thing that I just remembered.
what?
I just found out a couple hours ago that Brandon Cronenberg also has a sister who just released a movie.
She released a movie,
She released a movie, I think it came out
a
like a couple
a
of days ago.
a feature film,
Mhm.
a Cronenberg.
Another Cronenberg, because we
You
love our
know,
Cronenbergs on this
don't do this
podcast.
to me.
And I didn't get a chance to look it up, but he has a sister called, is
Is it
it Kissan?
Caitlin or Cassandra?
She's one
Caitlin
of,
Cronenberg.
yeah, I think she would just released a movie. I saw something on Instagram, but I wasn't sure.
Oh, oh, I wait. Why does this kind of look from Humane? Is it that movie?
Could be.
Fuck, dude, I got it. I got to know this.
Trying to find it as well. But
Yeah, it says Caitlin Cronenberg, daughter of director David Cronenberg, to helm thriller entitled Humane. This is a story from 2022 that she had wrapped.
okay,
Um,
so it's not out yet, but or is it?
I'm trying to see here. Let's see. Because I feel like I saw a poster for this the other day. I feel like I did because I saw something and I'm like, is that who is that? It looks familiar. And then I looked up, I'm like, oh, it's Jay Baruchel. And now I see him here, so I'm curious if it's the same thing. But
Trying to find the post I saw. Where is it?
wow, I got to know what this is about. In
I
the
saw
wake of
something
an
on,
in the wake of an environmental collapse that is forcing humanity to shed 20% of its population, a family dinner erupts into chaos when a father's plan to enlist in the government's new euthanasia program goes horribly awry. That sounds fucking dope.
Mhm.
This sounds dope. Bro, shout out to the Cronenberg bloodline, sperm cells, whatever they got going on over there is just different.
They're killing it,
Those
man.
those people are different, man. All of them.
They're
That sounds
so
sick.
creative. But yeah, I saw something, but I think it's coming out. It's not out yet. But yeah.
That's what it looks like. It looks like they wrapped shooting in like the fall of last year.
Hmm.
So it seems like probably a release is coming soon. I wonder maybe if it played at a festival or is playing at like Cannes this week or something, maybe.
Could be. Could be. Maybe that's what the post was that I saw. I can't find it anymore. Maybe the person deleted it, or maybe I don't know where I saw it, but yeah.
We'll do some digging and we'll we'll definitely find out by the next episode.
For sure.
I'll be in the lab searching. And then there is one more movie that I do want to discuss real briefly before we get into our movie for the week. And that is some details on the new Safdie brothers movie. I know
Hmm.
we kind of mentioned them quite a bit on the pod, or at least I do.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm super excited because they added some new cast to the film
I'm
in
curious.
Ben Affleck and Steve Harvey.
No shit.
Yes. I'm gonna read you
Hmm.
the little blurb about kind of the plot synopsis because before when we discussed it, I think all we knew was that it took place in like the sports card industry and Adam Sandler was in it, and
Hmm.
like Megan the Stallion. Um, but what the kind of the plot is that we sort of have right now is that it is set in the world of high-end sports card collecting in the 1990s. A
Hmm.
retired baseball pitcher, played by Ben Affleck, attempts to make a comeback as sports memorabilia agent, played by Sandler, attempts to capitalize on Affleck's success. Megan the Stallion is reported to be playing Ben Affleck's girlfriend, and Steve
Interesting.
Harvey is joining in an unknown role.
That's sick. That sounds
Yeah.
so freaking funny.
How awesome does that sound?
That sounds incredible.
I
Do
love
we
that they're
have,
diving into the 90s too. Like that'll be super cool.
and they'll definitely like utilize that era.
For
Like we'll
sure.
get tons of nostalgia.
For sure.
Do we know any release date approximately? Is it next year? Is it
So the only thing that I've read, it's in development with Netflix. It'll be a Netflix film.
okay?
Um, I have a feeling just based on off the strength of the Safdies and Sandler, it'll probably see probably a limited theater run as well,
Mhm.
if not something bigger ahead of time. But it says that the goal was to start production in July, like to start filming in July and to wrap in September.
That's good. So we could get
So
a late 20.
probably, yeah, I would say probably fall or maybe even a Christmas of 2024 if I had to
Mhm.
guess.
That's good.
Um, but I'm excited. I mean, that's way too long. I wish it was, right now, but
Same.
um, super exciting to kind of to get that info, especially for some directors that I know we both really like a lot. So definitely had to share that with
Mm.
you.
It's cool to have Ben Affleck in a Safdie Bros movie. I didn't ever think that would happen, but right now I'm like,
Yes.
we need that. So I'm glad
Yes.
it's happening.
Yeah. I'm super stoked to see that. That's like the collab you didn't know you needed.
Have Adam Sandler and Ben Affleck ever
Good
been in something?
question.
I'm trying to think.
I My initial thought says no
It's weird because you would think they would have been something.
by now.
I'm glad it's this.
Yeah, I this is probably the best thing that can join them together. Off the top of my head, I'm saying no.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm gonna give it a Google real quick and see if there is anything that they have been in there together. Can you think of anything?
Not really. Maybe he had like a
Yeah,
cameo and no.
I don't think there's anything that they've ever worked in together.
Mm. Well, I'm
Yeah,
glad that's this one.
yeah, very
Perfect
cool.
way. Mhm.
Well, so we got a lot of cool stuff coming up, but I'm excited to talk about this week's movie, which is A Bucket of Blood from 1959, starring Dick Miller, directed by Roger Corman. This is an all-time favorite of mine, as I mentioned, and it was on my list, obviously. And For those who are listening and have not seen it, definitely go ahead and give us a pause here and go watch it and come back, because we're about to get into the weeds and do some spoiling here. Um, but yeah, so the basic plot of A Bucket of Blood is Dick Miller plays like this busboy slash waiter, really just a busboy who works at this like beatnik kind of 1950s Los Angeles club where everyone's really pretentious and they're just doing spoken word poetry and really experimental and artsy sort of folk songs and things like that. And he really so desperately wants to kind of be accepted by that culture, but everyone sort of brushes him aside as this as just the busboy, and he doesn't really have much to offer, but he really desperately does. And one night when he goes to his apartment, he hears the sound of his landlady's cat in the wall. In an effort to innocently try to save the cat, he puts a knife into the wall to cut an opening. However, the knife goes through and stabs the cat, killing it, at which point he feels very, very bad. But he tries to cover it up and hide it from the landlady in some clay that he has at home, unknowingly creating a masterpiece that the people in the beatnik community all kind of gather around him for. And From there, he realizes that he has to continue to make art if he wants to continue to be accepted in this world. The only issue is he's only really good at it when he's just putting clay around something that's already living or not living. So he then begins going around, and what start to begin as accidental deaths start to become a little bit more purposeful. And Walter, essentially, which his name's Walter Paisley, the character played by Dick Miller, he essentially starts committing some of these murders and covers up all the bodies in clay. And each statue that he brings in, people get more and more excited for, and also more and more horrified by, until towards the end, the manager at the Beatnik Club notices some fur sticking out from the dead cat little statue. Realizing that the cat is real, he puts things together and realizes that all the people, or all the human statues, must also be from real people as well. So he gets found out and must try to escape from them. And It is well, I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Mhm.
That's pretty much the bulk. Was this? I know that this was a first time watch for you. Is that correct?
First time I have never heard of it before. I didn't know what it was about, so I went in blind, not even an idea what it could be about.
Uh,
And I was very surprised. The premise is so freaking cool.
yeah.
I just love the idea of it. And I found out they shot it in 10 days,
Yes.
which is incredible. Like shooting something like that in just 10 days. Hats off to the whole cast and crew. It was great. I liked it. I liked the black comedy aspect of it. It was very like dark humor,
Yeah.
which I very, very much liked. Um, I don't know, it was very fascinating, and it's very it's crazy that I haven't heard of it before. Because watching it, I was like, why have I not heard of this? Because it should be, I don't know if I'm just haven't heard of it, or like people aren't talking about it a lot, but I just feel like it should be discussed more.
I mean, yeah, I obviously completely agree with you, but you're definitely
Mhm.
not wrong in saying that, because I don't think it's like necessarily a regarded. I think when people think of Roger Corman or people in that world who really respect him, this is
Mhm.
one of those that are like at the top of the list. But in terms of general film, like you're not going to see this on any lists of like the best
Mhm.
movies of all time, whatever. Which, and in terms of craftsmanship, I'm not even saying it's the best thing ever, but I do love this story almost
Mhm.
more than anything else. And I do love how nice and fast paced and brisk and how funny it is. It's very ahead of its time in its dark
Mhm.
comedy, I think.
It is. And you said it was a comfort movie for you. And
Yeah.
like going through the letterbox reviews, I saw a lot of people saying the same thing.
Really
Like this is
good.
one of yeah, you have to check it out. A lot of people said it's one of their comfort movies. And I just that makes me happy because it's a very short, but it has a very specific tone to it. And I
Yeah,
can see why it would be a comfort film for a lot of people. So
absolutely. And it's like Dino said, it was made in 10 days, which even by Roger Corman standards is a long time. He
mhm,
followed this up with The Little Shop of Horrors, the original one.
mhm.
He shot that in 2 days, that
And
entire film, 48
how long is it?
hours. It's kind of like the same as this, maybe even a little longer, like 70 minutes, maybe.
Two
But
days.
it's 2 days, 48 hours. They shot the whole film in 2 days.
That is incredible. That is ridiculous.
Yes. It's in Roger Corman for anyone listening or even for you if you're not too familiar with Corman, he's kind of regarded as the king of the Bs, meaning like the B movies. He
Mhm,
is a absolute legend in low budget independent filmmaking who has produced well over 500 films in his career. He's directed like over 60, I think.
mhm.
He knows how to make a movie for little money, for in little time, and knows how to turn a profit. And he has a great book, which I have in here somewhere because I reread it all of the time. But it's called, and I highly recommend. No one's watching except for you. It's called "How I Made 100 Movies in Hollywood and Never Lost a Dime." And it's true. He has only lost money on one single film in his career, which is
That's
pretty
crazy.
insane.
I need to read that book. Sounds
It's
very
very
interesting.
it's very cool. If you can find it out there, I highly recommend. If you can't, I will literally ship it to you internationally. It's a great read.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's cool. This movie was made for $50,000 and it made 180,000 off the box office.
Interesting.
So that's quite, especially for them, quite the profit
Mhm.
for them, and a good testament to the Roger Corman method of filmmaking for sure.
And I need to watch more Corman movies. I think this was my
Absolutely.
first one,
I
actually.
I yeah, because I don't know if at least in terms of movies we've discussed, I don't know, but yeah, I think this is a good place to start. I think maybe even jumping into some of the Edgar Allan Poe movies he did in the 60s would maybe even
Mhm,
be the next best place to go because you have like Boris Karloff, Jack Nicholson, Peter Lorre, all these people in those movies, Vincent Price. So he really made a career of both jump-starting people's careers, Roger Corman. He cast Jack Nicholson in his first ever movie. Francis Ford Coppola was an assistant to him and did his first feature film for Corman.
mhm,
Joe Dante was an editor for Corman and did his first feature film for him as well. James Cameron was a special effects guy for Corman and did his first feature film for Corman. Martin Scorsese did his first feature film for Corman. Jonathan Demme did his first feature for Corman, and all these people all worked for him, and he put them
mhm.
all on. Bruce Stern, Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, like all of these people he put on, and like the new Hollywood would not exist without Roger Corman.
So he might be one of the most influential people in Hollywood. Like
100% that no one knows about.
he did a movie called Machine Gun Kelly.
Yes, he did. And I think
Is
that
that
has
is that why
who
Machine Gun Kelly calls himself Machine Gun Kelly?
I don't know. I think that there was a popular I think that there was a popular like uh um what is like an outlaw or something in America,
Mhm.
I think years ago maybe called that. That's
Okay.
what I think the movie is about. Um but maybe Machine Gun Kelly, our 2023 Machine Gun Kelly is a cinephile though. And maybe he's just he knows.
Exactly.
He's a big fan of Roger Corman. But yeah,
But
that
I'm
movie,
going
yeah, and I think
Mhm.
that had like Charles Bronson in it, actually, Machine Gun Kelly.
Mm. Yeah, Charles Bronson as George R. Machine Gun.
Hell yeah. But highly
I'm
recommend.
going
Like you said, he's one of the
Mhm.
most influential people. It's a shame that more people aren't fully aware of that.
Yeah, I'm going through his filmography, like through his titles, and he has so many like interesting sounding. And also the posters. The posters are incredible.
They're all so good. And
They're
I'm glad you
so
mentioned that
good.
because a big thing of Corman's too was he would have artists on hand to make posters every day. And then he would
Mhm.
say, that's a great poster. Now let's make a movie based on that poster.
That's
So you get
incredible.
things like the monster with 1,000 eyes or the beast beneath 100,000 miles under the sea or whatever, things like that. It's like, all right, let's go make that into a movie now.
The Wasp Woman.
The
I'm
Wasp
a
Woman is
very big.
great. Wasp
Mhm.
Woman, I also recommend. Also a great watch.
I need to watch more of his movies because I'm also a very like I love film posters,
Yes.
and I get inspired to watch movies through posters more than I do trailers.
Me
Like
too.
a good poster is does so much for me. And going through these, there are so many movies I'm going to put on my watch list because they look incredible.
You got to. That Wasp Woman poster is so sick too. I love that poster.
It looks so cool,
But
man.
another thing that Roger Corman did that was really cool was he didn't just like give stars to people, but he also gave second chances to other actors who had maybe aged out of roles. Like Vincent Price maybe had his heyday already through the 50s and whatnot. And then in like the 60s, Corman was casting him, or Ray Milland, or like I mentioned, Peter Lorre and Boris Karloff, these people who no longer were really cast in Hollywood. He was then giving them these opportunities to kind of still continue to act and make films, um, and also sell movies really easily because they were big names, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, shout out to Roger Corman for being a legend.
He sounds like
Um,
a great guy.
and still alive. Still alive.
He is.
I think he's nearing 100. Um, yeah, he's
As he should. He
97 years
should live
old.
forever. Honestly,
He
from what
should.
I'm heard right now, that guy is a freaking legend.
He should. And he's very with it. I saw an interview like a year ago. He is like very with it and like all together. It's not like he's some 97-year-old who's just like a
Mhm.
vegetable. Like he's there. And
Good for him.
yeah, I love Roger Corman. He's a big influence for me in terms of just making movies because he shows you can make it for no money, no time,
Mhm.
no resources, and you can still make something super, super sick. Um, but I'm curious to know about this movie. I want to know kind of your thoughts on this main character played by Dick Miller, this Walter Paisley fella.
Mhm.
I'm curious to know your thoughts. He's such a likable kind of guy in a weird, sort of demented way.
He is. He is very strange, but he's also this very like loner, and you feel for him because he
Yeah.
just wants to be accepted by this art community. And initially, he doesn't wish ill on people.
Hmm.
I mean, he does get eventually, and he also like the first murder, he just kind of snapped.
Yeah.
Later, he does get more brutal and more twisted, but
Hmm.
initially, he's a likable guy, and he just wants to be liked, and he wants this girl. I forgot her name.
Um. Oh God. Carla. Carla. Carla.
Carla, yeah, because he always says Carla. Like, so I liked him. I did
Yeah.
really. Near the end, I didn't as much because he does go too far. But
Hmm.
I mean, how can you hate this guy except him murdering a bunch of people, obviously? So,
Yeah. And it's kind of, I really like it because it really is just sort of, it is relatable in a sense, in
mhm,
that it's like I can almost relate to like someone's desperation to so desperately, not necessarily like, I guess, to be accepted in a weird way. I feel like that's a very clear like of an artist sort of journey that he's going
mhm,
on, that he's going to the most extreme lengths to be accepted by others for his art. And I find that to be really interesting and ahead of its time, especially for
mhm,
like a very low budget film from this era. Um, but because of that, I really find him to be relatable or maybe likable in that
mhm.
sense. Um, and I love his voice. I love the way he talks, and I love like all the names too. Like when he's like, "What's the lady who gives him like the canister of heroin?" He's like Naolia. I love the way he says
That's so funny.
that.
I really liked how he talked, and just you can see a lot of inspiration, like a lot of other characters, more modern characters that were a bit inspired by him.
Oh yeah.
Just the way he articulates himself, and there
Oh
are so
yeah.
many great scenes, and just the comedy of it. There was one
Hmm.
scene I loved so much is when the landlady is it called landlady?
Yes, yeah.
A female landlord. Okay. So when she hears like the bang, when he murders that policeman,
Yes.
he comes in into the apartment and he hit the body real quick. And there's this thing and there's a blanket over it. And you think, oh, the body is clearly under there.
Right.
But then the hand comes from like the roof.
Yes.
I don't know why, but that scene, I thought that was so well made. It was so cool because I didn't expect it, and just the way the hand fell over and was just hanging there and the blood dripping down from it. There was a scene, I don't know why, but if I ever were to make a movie where the character has to hide a body, I would do
Hmm.
it like that because that inspired me, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, I love to hear that. And I'm glad you mentioned it because that is such great misdirect where it's
Mhm.
like you said, it's like, oh, it's got to be under here. And even
Mhm.
like I've seen this movie probably 10 times. Even like initially, I was like, oh, this is, oh, and I was like, oh no, no, because then
Mhm.
they pull back a little and you see kind of over his shoulder the background. I'm
Yeah.
like, nope, yep, that arm is gonna fall in three. Yep, there it is.
And that is so
Um,
good because you have this tense situation where she could just pull that blanket away and you're like,
oh
oh,
yeah,
she's gonna do it, but then the body isn't even there. So and she doesn't even
yeah.
do it. So
Yeah, it's and then because of that, it's a great scene to mention as like a favorite because that's what then brings in the titular bucket of blood. He brings in this small
mhm.
bucket so the draining blood can just fall into it. Which this is
Exactly.
the first time watching it that I caught it. I'm like, oh, that's why it's called a bucket of blood. Otherwise, I never was like, well, I don't know why it's called it. It's a cool
Mhm.
name, but I don't get it. But then this, I'm like, oh, literally just because there's. I see. Yeah,
A
I got
bucket
it.
of blood.
Yeah. But yeah, there was I really really I'm glad you really liked this movie as well. Did you have I mean, would you consider that to be like your favorite moment or favorite scene?
For sure. I
Yeah.
watched that and I don't know why it's kind of simple, but in a way it
Yeah.
was so creative and I was just like, wow, I was in awe. Like it was
Yeah.
amazing. That's definitely my favorite scene. I like the one where she was it heroin that she gave him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also very funny. When the cop comes in, he doesn't even know what she gave him. Like he has no clue.
He has no clue.
Yeah. And also
Which
like
I
how Mhm.
I was gonna say I just love that she just so subtly tries to give him such a hard drug too. It's just like what?
That was so funny. Just like how snobby the art people were. Like in the beginning, he's just trying his best, and they're like, "Oh, you're never gonna be a good artist."
Yeah.
Even when he makes his first, like the cat, when he brings that,
Yeah.
the other guy's like, "What is that? Like, you're not an artist. Stop doing that."
Yeah. I
But
love that with
then,
each one, they kind of are then by the end they're like, I'm honored to know you.
mhm. Yeah, that was great.
So funny. I well, I'm curious to know about your thoughts on towards the end of the film. When you were
Mhm.
watching it, did you kind of have any idea in mind of where you thought it was going to lead to or at the end, or were you not thinking about it, or did it end exactly kind of how you thought it would? Because I
I
really
wasn't
love
sure
the
actually
ending.
because the movie wasn't as I expected. I mean, I didn't know anything, I didn't expect anything, but as it started, I was like, "Oh, this is probably where it's going to go." But then it didn't. So I don't think I kind of stopped thinking about the end. I just enjoyed the
Yeah,
journey to it.
yeah.
What about you? Did you when first time watching it, do you remember?
I don't remember. I because they kind of have an interesting like history with this movie, but it's this genuinely is one of my favorite endings of a movie.
Mhm.
Like I'm not gonna say like, oh, this is up there with the end of like Citizen Kane or something like that, or but it's like the way that it like that is the only way that now looking back, I'm like, this is the only way this could have ended. There is
Mhm.
no other way that this film could have ended other than him being like that last line where they're
Mhm.
like his greatest work and it's him. I'm like, that is literally like highbrow genius shit. I'm like, that is so good and so
Mhm.
smart. And I don't remember how I initially thought it would, but I think as you go through it, it becomes almost inevitable that he has to get some kind of comeuppance for what he's doing, though.
I thought he was just gonna like the police is gonna get to him and he gets imprisoned or something and just loses his mind and he thinks he's this great artist and he
Mm-hmm.
this insane guy in prison talking about like how he is this incredible artist, but I didn't expect it to end it that way. Now
Yeah.
thinking about it, this was definitely like the cops are gonna get him and that's gonna be the end.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad that you really liked it. I mean, it's funny because this one there's not as much to talk because this movie is so nice and short and it's like a good 60 minutes flat. So it's easy to kind of just get through all of it really, really quickly. But I was curious to know, to be fair, I didn't even think about it at all
Mhm.
afterwards. I actually kind of forgot, but something that we have been doing over the last few episodes. Could you see this being remade today? And who could you see kind of playing that role or directing something like this?
I could definitely see it being remade, but the problem is I don't think it could capture that charm the original one has.
Mm-hmm.
Because the main actor is he is so unique the way he just plays that character. You could definitely
Mm-hmm.
get away with like the snobby art people, but that charm of this film, I don't think you could replicate, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I found via some digging afterwards
Mhm.
something that because I've been a fan of this movie for quite some time, something I was unaware, it was remade in the 90s.
Was it?
And it is starring, this cast is kind of insane. It's starring Anthony Michael Hall as Walter Paisley
Hmm.
from the likes of Breakfast Club and
Hmm.
16 Candles and all that. Carla is played by Justine Bateman, Jason Bateman's sister. And now in smaller roles, we have David Cross, Jennifer Coolidge, and Will Ferrell.
Who do they play?
I'm hold on, let me look here and see who they play.
That's wild.
I think Will Ferrell. Okay, so like I said, Anthony Michael Hall is the main guy.
That
Um,
fits.
that
He's an
totally
actor that
fits.
fits that role.
I completely agree. Jennifer Coolidge is Jennifer
Wait, what?
Coolidge is someone who performs like at the Beatnik Club. I guess she just gets on stage nude and plays the cello, which is super funny.
Mhm.
Um,
What's this called? This remake?
it's called A Bucket of Blood.
The same. Okay.
Exact, yeah. And then it looks like oh, this was Will Ferrell's film debut. He plays the guy, I guess, um who tries to buy the dead cat. When he's like, "I'll give you $1,000, 3,000,
Mhm.
or 300, or whatever it is."
The poster looks cool though.
It looks pretty cool. It looks very VHS-y,
I
but
need to check it out.
I guess the film was like a Showtime thing. There was a TV series called Roger Corman Presents, where it was
Mhm.
a series of like hour-long films or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, or actually, this is full length. This is like 85 minutes. But it was a
85.
series of
Mhm.
films, all made for cable that were produced by Roger Corman, or were also remakes. It looks like they did a Wasp Woman remake. They did a Not
Mhm.
of This Earth remake. They did a Piranha remake. Damn. So it looks like they were remaking a lot of Corman's movies.
I need to check that one out just to see
I'm
what
going
it's
to
like.
too, because I had no idea it existed literally until a couple hours ago.
Mhm. But in terms of if they could remake it right now, the thing is, after watching it, I really like these art killer, art horror movies.
Yeah.
And I think we should get more of those. There is Velvet Buzzsaw, which I didn't like.
I didn't see it because I heard some bad
Yeah,
reviews.
it's not very good, but I would like to see more of those. So just get an original idea
Hmm.
and make an art horror movie. Make it like maybe a painting where every night a killer comes out and kills someone, and then the owner dies and then the painting gets sold to someone else and then he dies. Like you have
Hmm.
something like that. Maybe like just art horror, but direct
Well,
remake, I just
it's
don't think.
tough. I
Yeah.
couldn't think of one either. And now seeing this, I'm like, oh, Anthony Michael Hall was the perfect choice for that.
Mhm. Definitely. Now you
That's
just
awesome,
said
and I'm
it.
gonna check it out for that.
Me
But
too.
I do have something that I will tell you off the pod, per usual. We'll get into that later, personally. Um,
Can't wait.
but I'm curious to know. So now that we kind of wrap up, on a
Mhm.
scale of 1 to 10 dead cats, how much is Walter Paisley literally you?
Well, let's just take away the murdering
The murder,
psychopath
yes.
thing real quick, because without it, I understand him because he just wants to be accepted. He wants to be an artist. He's maybe not very talented, but he wants to be a part of that community. I can definitely relate to that.
Hmm.
And I would give him maybe a 7 just for like being an artist with no talent, trying his best.
Yeah,
The murder thing knocks it down
a little
a
bit.
bit, a little bit. So I would give it maybe a 5.
Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
I think honestly, and again, I'm trying to take the murder out of it or use that to knock it
Mhm.
down. I
Yep.
think this might be my highest yet. I really think it's like a solid like eight.
Mhm.
Eight for
I
me, literally
understand that.
me.
Mhm.
I'm just like, damn, man, I really feel for you. I really hope you get accepted in this community and you just, I just really relate to him a lot and really love him a lot too.
Mhm.
So let's say that it was not just a 10, but an 11, and then the murder and hearing voices and all that brought it down
Mhm.
about three. So,
Okay.
so let's leave it at that.
Mhm.
Um, but uh, but yeah, man, I'm super excited on you finally checking out this movie. Um, and I'm glad it seems that you did enjoy it as well. So that makes me super
I'm, ve-
happy.
I'm very happy to discover so many movies I haven't seen before through
Hmm.
you and this podcast. I'm very
Likewise.
thankful because this movie was great and I could see myself, if I have like an hour to spare, just checking it out, just putting it on in the background
Yeah.
or like, and I think it could draw your attention back to it even if you put it on in the background, just watching it more. So I definitely check it out again.
100%. And his other movies too, like Wasp Woman, I highly recommend. Um, and the original Little Shop of Horrors. These are all like same time, like or like same era, but also same like length. They're all like kind of like 1 hour ish. So they're definitely nice, easy watches for sure. Um, but before we sign off, it is that time
Mhm.
again to pick next week's film. This week obviously was mine for A Bucket of Blood. So this coming week we will be going through my boy Dino's list. So that means
Mhm.
you're gonna pull out the old random number generator, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna go through your list and tell you which one it is. And guys, if you're new to this, you know the drill. Or if you're not new to this, you know the drill. If you are, you don't. And each week we go through our own separate lists with a random number generator to find the movie that we're gonna watch. And Dino, give that thing a spin, and let's see what we're watching.
This week's number is number 6.
Number
What
six.
movie would that be?
Number six is the 2021 motion picture, The Green Knight.
That's okay. That's not a coincidence because I was having breakfast this morning and I was thinking, wouldn't it be funny if next week's movie would be The Green Knight? Because we may, I'm not going to say it right now because it might not happen, but we may have our first guest next
Ooh,
episode because there's
ooh.
someone that we both know
Mm-hmm.
who loves this movie. It's one of their favorite movies. And I
Interesting.
told myself if this movie gets drawn, I'm going to ask him to come on the podcast. I'm going to tell you off the podcast, but
Okay.
I'm going to keep it a surprise because it may not happen. He may not have the time, but could be our first guest.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. I think I know who you're talking about. I think we might have discussed it off pod before.
Mhm.
Um,
Pretty sure, yeah.
but I'm super excited to check it out. This is a movie I've not seen. I
You
skipped on
haven't.
it and I've never
That's
seen it.
perfect. I
Never
think
seen
you
it.
like it. And it's also very funny because now thinking about it, I talked about it yesterday with my girlfriend
Really?
because we talked about fantasy movies and like these medieval fantasy movies. And I told her I can't wait to watch The Green Knight with you.
Oh,
So
hell yeah. Hell
this
yeah.
always happen on our podcast. I'm
This is
happy.
the most coincidence-based podcast I think on the market.
It is.
Every week there's something.
We should market our podcast with that actually.
We really should. There's quite a bit of lore that goes on with this pod, and
Yeah.
glad to have all these listeners along for the ride. But super excited. So next week we'll be checking out the Green Knight. That's fairly available, I think, in most
Mhm.
places to rent. If not, you can go on Letterboxd and see where it's streaming. Super excited. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. And yeah, Dino, any final words?
Thank you for listening. Thank you for keeping up with us and watch this week's movie and join in on the discussion next week.
Let's do it. Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.